All right, guys. Happy Saturday. We have another Southern Charm pop-up for you where we are going to talk all about the last episode of Southern Charm. It was a sad one, but it was still very good. So before we get into the reason behind it was such a sad episode, I want to talk about a couple of the brighter moments, and we'll get into everything that happened this episode. All right, guys, nothing was better than seeing Madison go to Craig's house in the beginning of this episode and have a full-on gossip session with Craig and Paige about what had happened the night before at Whitney's house. I just loved seeing Paige excited to hang out with Madison and gossip. We know Craig loves to gossip, and it's nice that him and Madison kind of have this relationship, because obviously we saw in prior seasons it was him and Catherine that would always get together and talk about everything. So I loved it. Craig was very happy about it because he said that one of the things holding Paige back was the fact that she doesn't have a social circle in Charleston. So for her to kind of see that Madison is there and they really get along, it was just good to see. Could you imagine sitting down and gossiping with Madison and Paige about everything going on? That is going to be one of my new bucket list items. Gossip session with Madison, Paige, and Craig. Sign me up, guys. If you hear this, invite me to the next one because I have some thoughts. So I love that Madison was oh my God, Craig, your house looks so nice. Paige, great job on what you did with decorating the place. She knows Paige had a hand in helping out with the redesign of Craig's house. And it looks gorgeous, right? We've seen in past seasons him doing the whole remodel. The house is absolutely beautiful. And if you've seen his social media since the pool's been done, it is I would not leave my house. That place is an oasis back there. So congrats to them. I love it. And it was so funny to see Paige be oh, I made homemade lemonade. And she's just kidding. I bought it from the store. It was just I don't know. I loved it so much. So they get into the gossip of it all. And nothing is better than when you sit down and your friend is okay, can we get into it? And you're just yes, this is what I've been waiting for. I want to talk about all the tea, everything that happened. And they were so excited to talk shit. And it was just amazing. And it wasn't even shit talking. They really were just recapping what happened, but it was amazing. So Madison drops the bomb that Whitney told her that Taylor had sent her a nude photo. Craig was oh yeah, I've seen it. Paige's reaction was what? How could you not tell me about this? What do you mean? She was mouth agape, shocked that this was even happening. And I love that they were it was dark lighting, full frontal. It was just it was a lot. It was too much, but it was literally I was living for it. But it was so good. I literally I don't know, I just loved it. Everyone loves a good gossip session. So they talked about the timeline, and Paige talked about how Taylor approached Olivia as soon as she got into the door, and she didn't even have her coat off before she was telling her that she made out with Austin. And the editing, they did that flashback. It was perfection. And I said the same thing, right, guys? She literally didn't even have her fucking coat off, and Taylor was pulling her aside to tell her at least let the girl get comfortable first, right? Regardless, it was just nothing is better than a recap with your friends about a situation going on between somebody else that you guys know. It just brings me joy. But that was such a good moment. I loved it so much. It then goes into Austin going to his parents' house, and he tells them that Olivia said that she fucking hates him and wants nothing to do with him. And his parents are like, oh God. His dad was like, should I ask why? And Austin was kind of like stumbling on his words, trying to like find the right thing to say. And his mom was like, oh God, did you sleep with her? And he said no. And he just said like, but she was going through a tough time with Shep, and I was going through all this stuff with Olivia. So we did actually kiss. And Austin's mom was hilarious when she said, oh, open another bottle of wine, open the bottle of French white. Like, I also want to drink wine with Austin's mom. Like, that was literally hilarious. The dad was like, his reactions were like, is this a pattern? Like, what is going on? Like, just so honest and pure with their reactions. Like, it was everything. And obviously, we know, guys, like, Austin tells his parents that he is in therapy and he really kind of wants to figure out what's going on. His parents have been together for so long. They've been through so much and they're still best friends. And Austin wants to kind of find something like that. So he's going to therapy to see what is wrong with him and why these patterns continue. And if you watch What Happens Live with Craig and New York, Craig says that like Austin doesn't want to be that way. He literally wants to find like a significant other or like a life partner, and he just always shoots himself in the foot and like can't get out of his own way. So hopefully this helps him figure out what's going on. And it was nice to see him like vulnerable, like about that side of his life, because he knows that like there's some like self-work that needs to be done. So hopefully in due time, he'll find a significant other. I always wonder like who would Austin like end up with, right? Because obviously we know it's not Taylor. She has a new man. Like, I want to know like what girl is out there. I want to know. So it was just nice to see him like talk to his parents about all of that and kind of see their reaction to like him opening up about that side of his life. Guys, we got a scene with little Craig. That poor little dog scared the shit out of Shep, but luckily he's okay. It was so like sweet to see Shep like so upset about little Craig. And they did the flashback of like him getting him a couple of years ago. Shep acknowledged that like he's never really like cared about anything as much like in his life, and it was just good to see. Little Craig, I believe, is still okay, but that was like a scary moment because it just kind of like, I don't know, it just like kind of like makes you think. Everyone loves like their babies, their cats, their dogs, their animals. So it was like sad to see him like stressed out in that situation, but little guy is okay. So that was a plus to hear. Guys, give it up for Michael the butler. So happy that we got to see a moment with him on the show with Patricia. Loved that he like taught her how to make a martini. It was like so nice to see Michael. Everybody loves Michael. It was on this episode like his 2-year anniversary from his incident. And Patricia had said like the night before they were out and it was like everything was normal. And then the next day he had a stroke. And you really never know like what is going to happen in life. And that was really kind of like the premise behind this whole episode. Like life is short. You never know what's going to happen. So you have to make sure that like you make the best of it. So pop-up appearance by Michael. Loved to see him. I always get so happy when Patricia posts like updates about his life on Instagram, because it just goes to show that like they still are so close and keep in contact. And as she said, Michael is really like a part of the family, of her and Whitney's family. So hopefully we get to see more of him. If not this season, maybe in seasons to come. Would love an in-person visit, but for now we'll take the FaceTime calls because I enjoyed it. It made me happy. So after that, guys, we kind of get into like the nitty gritty, like the it was like literally such a sad episode. And this is where like everything kind of started, where Leva was going to meet Venita for dinner. Olivia was supposed to go. Leva could not get in contact with Olivia. Venita couldn't get in contact with Taylor. So they didn't even know if these two were even going to show up to dinner, but they still went anyway. And while they are there filming, Leva gets a phone call from Taylor, and that's where everything kind of just like, it was like a stopped moment in time. Taylor has told Leva that like she got wind that something happened with Olivia's brother Connor. She asked her if she's heard anything. She said that she was told that he had passed away. The reaction was like shocking, and I don't blame Leva for wanting to stop filming. She literally said, I don't want to film. I don't want to cry in the middle of this restaurant. Production was amazing, stepped right in, said we can end it here. They stopped the filming. The girls left. When they returned, it went to the next day. And it was Austin and Taylor on the phone. And Austin had like a complete, like, pure reaction to what was going on. Obviously, he can relate. He went through the same situation when he was younger with his sister. So losing a sibling is probably triggering for him. And also, like, he just feels for Olivia. And all he wanted to do was see her and give her a hug. And he asked Taylor, like, what it was like to see her and like what he can do. Because like I said, all he wanted to do was like go up and hug her. And you can tell like he truly, truly, truly feels for her, because he was sobbing. He was on the floor crying. His reaction, again, was so pure. And he was obviously coming from a good place. And it was nice to learn later on in the episode that she got to see him and they got to like have a moment together. But it was nice to see all of the charmers like kind of check in on each other with what was going on. We got JT talking to Rod about the situation. Shep and Craig talked about the situation. Shep was not so like gracious enough to offer his home to friends and family that were in from out of town, because he lives across the street from the Flowers family. So he was going to spend a night with Craig. It was just like, it was nice to see them all kind of like do a check-in, right? They all like rallied around each other, make sure everybody was okay, because they all knew Connor. I feel like Connor was, although not on the show, like a very big presence in like the Charleston scene. So they all knew who he was, and it was just sad. It was really sad. My heart broke for Olivia this episode. We did get a moment where Rodrigo went to Craig's house. Craig was making a lasagna to take to Olivia and her family. Gigglers, you get it. Don't we love that Craig took a lasagna and left it on the porch? I mean, if you know, you know, right? And while he was making this lasagna to take to Olivia and her family, him and Rodrigo were hanging out. Guys, it was a sad episode, but this moment was so funny where Craig could not open a bottle of wine and the cork got stuck. He was trying to like filter it through like the lid of like a pot. I don't know what he was doing. He gave up and he was like, I'm just going to open another bottle. Rodrigo opened it in 2 seconds. It was hilarious to see. He couldn't open the can of tomato sauce. I feel like he was just kind of like, he couldn't win in that moment, right? Like feelings are probably all over the place. He's probably just like nervous, anxious, whatnot. So he just could, it was entertaining to see. And Rodrigo was kind of just like, what the fuck's going on? Like, you good? So, I mean, there was just red wine all over the place, but it was a nice gesture. It was nice that like he took the lasagna over. Obviously, we learned that like Austin had dropped some stuff off. We learned that Craig sent Olivia flowers. Obviously, Shep gave up his home. So they all really rallied around her. It was nice of the girls to want to have Olivia over in like a safe space to make sure she was okay. Obviously, it happened at Vanita's home. Vanita's home kind of seems to be like the hub as to like where the girls meet up and hang out. I've said it again. I'll say it, or I've said it before and I'll say it again. I want to go to a party that Vanita throws. Although this was just like a moment of like checking in on your girlfriend, she still made it so like welcoming and warm. And she had like set up pillows all over the floor. She had chicken nuggets and French fries, like cooking. She made margaritas. Like she's just like the hostess with the mostest. So the girls are all meeting at Vanita's house. And Vanita has said that like she hasn't heard back from Taylor. And it's just weird because it's like she's avoiding her calls. And she doesn't really want Taylor to come to her house now because her emotions are all over the place. Well, wouldn't you know, in that moment, Vanita gets a phone call from Taylor. And just like really says that like, sorry, I've been missing your calls. It's just been like a hell of a week. And Vanita tells her like, girl, I've talked to Olivia and the situation is about her. And yet she's still been able to return my calls and you haven't. And Taylor just makes an excuse. I get it. Like she was just like not really kind of like in the mindset to talk to anyone. But she still could have at least reached out. It would have like a text message. You don't have to answer the phone call. Maybe just shoot a text back or something. So Vanita tells her like, thanks, but like, I just don't think you should come today. Like your heart is in the right place, but your emotions are all over the place. The last thing Vanita wants is for her to like bring up something about Austin. She really just wants to make sure this is a safe space. And Taylor says, well, what Olivia needs right now are like her best friends and her family and people who know the family and knew Connor and like what, like everything about that. And Leva snatched the phone. She goes, I've known Olivia's parents for ages. Like how she was offended. She was like, almost like, how dare you say that? Like she needs those types of people when like I am that type of person. And I will say Vanita got her when the phone was hung up. She's like, she needs her best friends. She was like, then you don't belong here because you are not that to her right now. Like insinuating like, girl, like you've been keeping secrets about hooking up with her ex-man and like all this stuff. And like all of a sudden you're running to be like the savior. And that's just not the position that you're in right now. So Olivia showed up. It was so heartbreaking to see her like break down about Connor and the fact that like she can't go into his room, but his mom can't leave the room and the dad is just like focusing on work and they're all on different pages. And it was just like, obviously if you've like experienced any type of death, it's like very hard to go through. There's like different stages that like you handle things in. And this is probably so fresh for them that like they don't know what to do. I don't know, guys. I can't say it enough that like how bad I feel for them. But Olivia showed up, or I'm sorry, Taylor ended up showing up. And Olivia made a statement that said like, although there's like stuff going on with Taylor and I, like you really appreciate the people who show up for you in moments like this, which is also like good for the situation with her and Austin, because she did say that Austin did reach out and Austin did drop off stuff at her home and they did have a moment. So feelings aside, like they showed up for her in the time that she really did need them. And she appreciates that. And I can only imagine like what's going to come in the season, guys, because obviously like, this is just one tragic event that happened. You guys are all aware that Taylor's brother also did pass during this season. So that I'm sure is coming like closer towards the end. But like, it's just so sad that like they're all going through this. But overall, it was a very enjoyable episode, despite the circumstances. guys, I'm loving Southern Charm this season. It is like literally back to old Southern Charm. Like it's so good. Every episode so far has been amazing. Guys, you don't have to wait until next week to see what happens because I posted the first 7 minutes of next week's episode on my Instagram. So make sure that you go and check that out. I hope you're enjoying these Southern Charm pop-ups. They're quick episodes just all about Southern Charm strictly, and it gives us a chance to talk about the episodes and really just focus on like that show because guys, it's like literally one of my favorites. So I hope you're enjoying it. Guys, like I said, again, go check out the first 7 minutes of next week's episode, and I'll talk to you guys next week.